Good evening. Welcome back to the 9 p.m. Midnight Tacos News Flash. In today's news, we will talk about the 75th anniversary from Tecnológico Monterrey, the partial exams madness, and the International Monetary Fund.
I'm Barbara Martinez, and along with David Garcia and our staff, we are glad to have you here tonight. Stay with us because we have so much news to tell you today.
First of all, the 4th of September, the alumni, staff, and directives came together to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the prestigious institution. The rectory mosaic was illuminated with the characteristic color blue, famously known as Blue Tech.
All the students and professors from other tech campuses came to witness the event and also to compete in the inter-campuses where different team members are going to compete to get the trophy home.
Speaking of Blue Tech, do you know that Starbucks introduced a Frappuccino Tech, which will be the signature beverage in the institution during the week, along with the Blue Conchitas from Panem?
That is truly amazing. We'll definitely get one of those. In other news, partial exams has the stress levels of the roof, with many students staying late night hours studying, and the library has no room for relaxing friends.
Unbelievable. Well, now with the headliner of the night news, let's talk about Christina Lagarde, the president of the IMF, who held a conference in the Luis Elizondo Auditorium a few hours ago. She was more than welcomed by directives and students who attended the event.
After the conference, she agreed to have a meeting with one of our reporters. They're going to talk about the problems that the IMF is facing in the international system and the reform that the country members want.
But before we show you this interview, we would like to show you an interview of a special visit. We have Gloria Cunath, PhD, a specialist coming straight from the IMF to talk about its organization history and objectives.
Yes, good evening, David. I'm here with Dr. Gloria Cunath, an expert from the IMF. Doctor, what can you tell us about the IMF?
The IMF, also known as the Fund, is an international organization established in 1944 in Bretton Woods with the purpose of ensuring stability in the international monetary system. We all know the disastrous consequences of the Great Depression and the Second World War, so it was necessary to create a supranational institution that could foster growth and development all over the world to every country. Since its foundation, the IMF has provided many fragile economies with the proper financial support to overcome any crisis.
And how does the IMF support countries, economically speaking?
Well, firstly, the IMF lends money depending to the different economic situation of every country. Let's have in mind that the supports are based on specific conditions. The measures imposed are established according to the economical performance of the interested country. The IMF tries its best to accommodate with the nation's necessities so that the loan does not burden the national debt.
Okay, so basically the functions of the IMF are surveillance, financial support, and capacity development.
Exactly, yes.
Do you have in mind any successful case that you could tell us about?
Yes, I do. The most recent case, successful case, is the Vietnamese case. Vietnam was a country coming off of decades of war, leaving it devastated with a troubled economy. While it struggled with a 400% inflation and 60% of its population was in poverty, the government signed in the 1986 the Doi Moi Plan, which means renovation in Vietnamese. After clear improvements, Vietnam signed other arrangements in 1993, 1994, and 2001, pushing it towards a more global economy. Nowadays, it has been able to lower its inflation to 4% and its poverty rate to 16%. This is a noticeable improvement from the 80s thanks to the implementation of the IMF reforms, closely working with the Vietnamese government and organizations.
Really interesting. Thank you so much for your time. Back to you, David.
Thank you, Eileen, and thank you, Dr. Cunath, for being with us.
Now that we know the context of the IMF, we have our reporter Mina waiting for us to interview the president of the IMF, Christine Lagarde. We're going to you, Mirna.
Thank you, Maru. I'm here with Christine Lagarde, the current president of the IMF, who just had a conference in the auditorium of the Tec de Monterrey regarding that criticism toward the IMF and their strict reforms. Mrs. Lagarde, can you tell us how is the global economy managing?
Nowadays, the global economy is weaker than we had predicted months ago, as we are living in what we can call a catastrophic state for a global economy. We have to keep in mind that economic changes in the global landscape are endemic to each country and each region. Actually, the economies of emerging and developing markets have been improving the global economy since the big crisis in 2008, and they have generated 80% of global growth.
What about the low-income developing countries? What is their outlook?
The economic outlook for them is improving. 4 years ago, we expected the sub-Saharan Africa's economy to grow from 2.8% to 3.5%, which is what we saw this year. As to the Middle East, social and political unrest have made it to struggle in regards to economic growth. After 4 years of civil war, the GDP has reduced considerably. It would be wrong to give you a specific number, but I can tell you that those countries at war can face high inflation and the collapse of public spending.
We know that the financial crisis of 2008 put the whole world in an economic crisis. This made that many countries enter into debt. What is the solution, or what do you think they should do?
Well, 6 years after, the weakness of the global economy continues. Countries are still grappling with the legacies of the crisis, such as high debt burden and unemployment. If people keep the expectation that the growth potential will be lower tomorrow, it will reduce investment and security today. The dynamic could be a serious obstacle to recovery, especially in advanced economies that are also struggling with unemployment and low inflation.
Well, obviously all these risks bring immense human sacrifice. It will be inhuman not to think about all these people. What is the perspective of the IMF? What are they doing?
Well, along with the purposes of the IMF has adopted in its way of work the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations by helping countries achieve their goals through policy advice, training, and financial support. We encourage countries to invest in health, education, and social protection, and to include a gender budget in their policy agendas.
Finally, Christine, we have seen that the economic system has improved to numbers. However, it's not what many countries would like or would expect it. Yes, the monetary policy has provided important support during the crisis, but this is not enough. In fact, many specialists say that the work the IMF has done could be considered mediocre in terms of results. They insist the IMF to reform its system to be effective. What do you think?
The world economy is at a turning point. It can slow its pace, or it can look for a better trajectory. What should be done? Well, on the one hand, the use of political tools must be better balanced. It is also essential that countries adopt macroprudential measures to help prevent financial excesses and protect the stability of the financial system per se. Once again, there is no generic solution. Policies have to be designed and implemented according to the circumstances of each country. To see improvements, it is necessary to work as a team. Each policy instrument has to fulfill its function, and to achieve adequate balance, IMF and the countries must work together.
Well, there you go. To grow, you need to work in team. Thank you, Christine, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Maru, we are back to the studio. Thank you.
Thanks, Mirna. I'm afraid we have reached the end of this session.
Once again, thank you for choosing Midnight Tacos Flash News to inform you on present events. I'm David Garcia.
And I'm Ana Martinez. We will see you next week.